Tonight on The Big Story, another week of the Duterte impeachment trial done, marked by tension, political divide, and sometimes moments of levity. Amid efforts to oust her, Vice President Sara Duterte is still lording it over surveys as the top choice for president in 2028. Senator Rodante Marcoleta and his co-accused dropped motions to quash their plunder charges, opting for a full trial instead. And Defense Secretary Gibo Teodoro says he can see through China as it launches one provocation after another over disputed waters. Good evening, I'm Ces Oreña-Drilon, and just like that, the third week of Vice President Sara Duterte's trial is done. It looks like a wrap as well for the prosecution when it comes to the crime of assassination plot, inciting to sedition and grave threats. The last witness for the first article of impeachment to be presented, NBI Director Melvin Matibag, and he says they're closing in on the identity of the hitman VP Sara supposedly hired to kill the president. As that unfolded, there was bickering again at the impeachment court. Here are images from today's trial.
Ang sinasabi ko po ay yung dalawang mahal nating witness, si Attorney Jeremy Lotok at si NBI Agent Talilong, na sa mga oras na ito ay may kasong hinaharap na perjury. Pwede po bang iwasan natin na may mga ganito tayong witness? Ang nasasakdal po kasi dito ay ibinoto ng 32 million na tao. Sana po, aming mga mahal na kaibigan sa prosecution, ay isipin nating mabuti bago po tayo magbigay ng mga witness na may perjury na kaso o nagkaroon po kami ng dahilan na gumawa ng amenda na itong perjury ay amendahan. Pwede po ba yon?
First of all, we were able to verify already that there are no cases pending against the prosecution witnesses. In addition, Your Honor, and only to respond to the concern of the Honorable Senator Judge Padilla, ang conviction po ay hindi ground for disqualification unless it is final and unless it is punishable by more than 1 year and that the crime constitutes moral turpitude.
Bakit pag sa kabila pinapayagan sila 5-10 minutes, bakit pag sa amin, sa majority, kinakat agad ni remind pagdating ng 2 minutes? I think nakakalata na kami. So dapat pag sinabing 2 minutes, 2 minutes. Pag sa amin sa majority, pag 2 minutes, pinipindot nito. 2-3 beses. Totoo yan. Pero pag sa minority, umaabot na ng 5 minutes, 10 minutes. At meron akong record yan. Pinapayagan. Why?
Without mentioning po kung sino itong mga tao na ito or yung pagkakilala nila, kung nasaan sila, maaari po ba ninyong bigyan kami ng ideya itong mga persons of interest na ito, kung ano po talaga ang trabaho nila, kung sila po ba talaga yung mga hitman o mga gun for hire or...
Ang una-una ng ating tinignan dyan, yun nga pong sinabi na kumausap ng papatay. At lumalabas po rito, alam natin yung kasaysayan, malawak po ang kanyang tinatawag na connection, yung network po. Alam naman natin na siya ay Vice Presidente at ang dating Pangulo ay kanyang ama. Ibig sabihin, nakadevelop po ito ng mga relasyon. Unang-una na sa mga men in uniform. We are narrowing it down already to less than 20 individuals at may mga pangalan na po kami nito. We are not limiting it to the double death squad. Sabi ko nga po, meron pong mga aktibo pa sa serbisyo na men in uniforms at kasama rin po dito ang Vice President Sara Security Group. The betrayal of public trust as the issue in the impeachment court, we don't need to investigate even if we pinpointed the person contracted. Because the point being is, the betrayal of public trust was already been consummated when she publicly admitted that she contracted A killer?
Your Honor, with all due respect, Your Honor, I know that NBI Director took pains in explaining his answer, but his answer already contains conclusions of fact and law. And may we ask, Your Honor?
May I respond, Your Honor?
I'm not yet done. In keeping, Your Honor, with this court's ruling last week, may we ask, Your Honor, that it be stricken off the record?
Your Honor, ang depensa po ang nagtanong.
The motion to strike off is denied.
And unless we are under martial law again, Mayor Baste should be able to freely express his dissent to the government.
Your Honor, that is speculative.
But the freedom of expression has limitation also. Kung ito po ay nagbabiolate na ng batas at nakakasama na sa ating bayan.
Who is the author of that document?
As answered po, Your Honor.
The presiding officer would like to remind the witness to kindly avoid making a ruling for and behalf of the presiding officer.
Pasensya na po, Your Honor.
The NBI is yet to zero in on the person allegedly hired by Vice President Sara Duterte to kill President Bongbong Marcos. But Bureau Director Melvin Matibag tells today's impeachment hearing that they are getting close. Among the persons of interest are members of the VP Security Group. Mobile journalist Arles de los Santos is reporting live from the Senate. Arles, what else did Attorney Matibag reveal?
Ses, tumagal lamang ng humigit kumulang 3 oras ang ikasyam na araw ng impeachment trial ni Vice President Sara Duterte kung saan nga ay kinumpirma ni NBI Director Melvin Matibag sa kanyang pagharap sa impeachment court na meron na daw silang mga pangalan ng umano'y mga persons of interest na kasalukuyang iniimbestigahan kaugnay sa di umano'y pagbabanta ni VP Sara Duterte sa buhay ni Pangulong Bongbong Marcos, First Lady Liza Marcos at dating House Speaker Martin Romualdez sa 20 tinukoy na persons of interest. Hindi raw inaalis ng NBI ang posibilidad na isa o ilan sa kanila ay ang mismong kinontrata para paslangin ang Pangulo. Ayon pa kay Matibag, kasama sa tinitignan nilang persons of interest ay ilang uniformed men at ilang miyembro ng Vice Presidential Security and Protection Group. Bago yan, tinanong ni Senator Judge Erwin Tulfo kung paano ba tinutukoy ng NBI ang mga persons of interest gayong wala namang pinangalanan si VP Sara sa kanyang presko na umano'y kinontratang assassin. Paliwanag ni Matibag, may open source at human intel sila at tools para sa monitoring na kabilang sa kanilang investigasyon. Sa pagpapatuloy naman ng cross-examination ng defense team kay Matibag, diretsahang tinanong ni Defense Counsel Atty. Mark Binluan kung ang isinasagawa bang investigasyon ng NBI kaugnay sa umano'y pagbabanta ni VP Sara sa buhay ni Pangulong Bongbong Marcos ay para lamang masubstantiate o magbigay ng ebidensya sa impeachment case laban kay VP Sara. Sagot ni Matibag, hindi. Naniniwala si Matibag na consummated na o nagawa na ni VP Sara ang betrayal of public trust noong sinabi ni Duterte ang pagbabanta sa kanyang online press conference noong November 2023 kung saan sinabi niyang may kinontak na siya umanong para patayin ang Pangulo kung may mangyaring masama sa kanya. Doon pa lamang daw ay nilabag na ni VP Sara ang kanyang pinanumpaang tungkulin na i-execute ang batas, hindi ang Pangulo. Binalikan naman ni Defense Attorney Binluan ang paggamit ni Matibag sa talumpati ni Davao City Mayor Baste Duterte sa Rage Coalition noong April 12, 2026. Gate ni Binluan, protektado ng konstitusyon ang political speech at dapat may malayang makapagpahayag si Mayor Baste Duterte sa pagsalungat sa gobyerno maliban na lang kung martial law. Ipinalabas din ng defense team ni VP Sara ang mas mahabang video clip kaugnay sa pahayag nitong na-imagine niyang tanggalin ang ulo ni PBBM. Gate ni Binluan, hindi ba ang statement ay made in jest o pabiro o na-taken out of context lang ang bise? Sagot ni Matibag, hindi nila alam ang state of mind ng bise pero hindi nila nababaliwala ang naturang mga pahayag. Says.
Arles, sa kanyang testimonya, ginamit din ni Director Matibag ang statement ng self-confessed Davao Death Squad member na si Arturo Las Cañas. Ano ba ang tingin dito ng depensa?
Sas kanina nga ay question ng depensa si Matibag kung bakit daw ginamit ang affidavit ng self-proclaimed at DDS na member at killer na si Arturo Las Cañas na basihan para nga patunayan ang umano'y pattern of violence di umano ng bise. Gayong hindi naman siya pinatawag ng NBI para kumpirmahin nga na siya ang nagbigay ng testimonya na ito na at ang laman lamang para daw ma-verify pero ang laman lamang ang nasabing affidavit ay isinumite sa International Criminal Court o ICC. Paliwanag ni Matibag ay hindi nila ipinasapina si Las Cañas dahil hindi nila ito matunton. Pero dumaan daw ang pahayag nito sa verification process nang magtanong pa si Atty. Binluan actually says, sumagot na ask and answer po, Your Honor si Matibag na siyang pinaalalahanan naman ni Escudero.
Pero Arles, nagkainitan ang ilang senator judges, isa na dito yung tungkol sa oras ng kanilang pag-interject o pag-manifest.
O actually sis, hindi ko alam kung ako lang, pero parang first time ko ngang marinig yung bell kanina na tumunog, kasi kanina medyo nagkagirian sina Senator Padilla nang sitahin nito ang prosecution dahil na-interrupt daw siya sa pagtatanong, tila naingayan din si Padilla sa mga miyembro ng prosecution at bigla itong nagtaas ng boses at sabihing bawal mag-ingay sa loob ng korte. Sa kalaunan ay nahimasmasan si Padilla at nakapagpahaba pa at napapahaba na ang question and answer ni Padilla ng prosecution. Dito naman ay umalma na si Senator Judge Raffy Tulfo na tila pinapaboran daw ang mga taga-minorya sa oras ng pagtatanong. Nagpaliwanag naman dyan ang presiding officer na si Ces Escudero at sinabing wala namang majority o minority block sa impeachment court. Lahat sila ay senator judges. Pinagbibigyan din daw ang members ng majority block na nagpapa-extend ng kanilang mga oras. Gayunman, pinagsabihan niya ang tagapindot ng bell na maging consistent sa time limit ng senator judges. At dito na natapos ang cross-examination kay Matibag at wala na ring naging redirect ang prosecution. Says.
Arles, ano ba ang sinabi kasi ni Senator Padilla na nagkaroon ng reaksyon sa prosecution?
Kanina daw kasi says nagtatanong ito si Senator Padilla doon sa umano'y pagiging one-sided at dapat daw maging balance daw yung ganyan, and parang nakita nakuha natin sa record na parang merong konting naging reaction dito yung mga ibang miyembro ng prosecution, parang nagtawanan ata or nagbulungan, though hindi naman ganoon kalakas, and yun medyo sinabi ni medyo na galit nga si Senator Padilla at sinabi na mismo sa kanyang bibig na he was interrupted.
Pero Arles, ano ba talaga ang trabaho ng prosekusyon at ano ba talaga ang trabaho ng depensa? Linawin lang natin.
Sa kahit ano namang korte sa ating mga lokal na hukuman, meron talagang dalawang panig. Ayan ay para sa prosekusyon, ayan ay yung nagsasakdal doon nga sa akusado kaugnay ng mga reklamo sa kanya. And for this case, yung articles of impeachment ni Vice President Sara Duterte na nanggaling sa House of Representatives na 1/3 ang boto na kinailangan dito. So they found the probable cause, yung prima facie siguro conviction na sinasabi nga ng prosekusyon. And ayon, yung dahilan kung paano umabot dito sa impeachment court ang reklamong article of impeachment kay VP Sara. 4 yung grounds doon. And then syempre, ang Vice Presidente bilang respondent naman dito ay meron kanyang legal counsel. Syempre, ang kanilang posisyon ay para depensahan yung akusado o yun si VP Sara. And syempre doon ay maghaharap ang prosekusyon at depensa, susubukin nila yung kanilang mga ebidensya, yung kanilang mga testigo at yung kredibilidad ng mga ito. And for this case kay Matibag, credibility and bias yung naging punto ng depensa sa pagtatanong kay Matibag. Kaya naman kanina sa posisyon at pahayag ng prosekusyon, ayon kay lead private prosecutor Lorna Kapunan, may one side talaga ang prosekusyon at depensa at ayan ay syempre para ma-forward ang kanilang posisyon sa mga argumento na kanilang nais patunayan sa Senate Impeachment Court.
May kanya-kanya silang papel. Maraming salamat. Mobile journalist Arles de los Santos reporting live from the Senate. Maraming salamat. And now, joining us tonight is University of St. LaSalle Constitutional Law Professor and former Law Dean Ralph Sarmiento. Welcome to the Big Story, Attorney.
Yes, magandang gabi, Ces. Thank you for having me in your show.
First question, was the prosecution able to prove Article 4?
Well, may mga strength ang prosecution. I think specifically for today, it was able to establish yung institutional basis, no? The fact na hindi lang video yung mga that they presented, that this was also institutional in the sense that there was an action on the part of the NBI as an institution in investigating, assessing the threat. So parang binigyan nila ng new dimension na this is not only the work of some agents, but this is an institutional parang action on the part of the NBI. Pero I wouldn't say that the evidence presented with respect to Article 4 is airtight. Kasi marami ding like for example yung there will be questions about yung mga credibility ng mga evidence presented, yung there was a question about the personal knowledge of the, for example, ni Director Matibag, considering that he was just new in the NBI, and of course he was not personally present during the initial stages of the investigation, so he could not be testifying straight or directly on the initial stages of the investigation. So parang there are successes on the part of the defense, and at the same time may mga successes din on the part of the prosecution in the last 2 days of the proceedings.
Attorney, much debated about even yesterday and also today was the statement of Las Cañas, which is actually in the ICC and triggered the grant of limited immunity by the ICC to Las Cañas way back in November 2020. Could the prosecution have made more proven or attempted to prove the veracity of that statement, cum affidavit?
Well, to put into context, it was very clear that the prosecution explained that they were only presenting the affidavit of Las Cañas as part of the testimony of NBI Director Matibag. So they were not presenting the affidavit on its own merits to establish the contents or the substance of the affidavit itself. So dalawang possibilities po yun. If you are presenting the affidavit in that particular context and only as a lead in setting forth a direction in the NBI investigation, then it does not need to be notarized. It does not need to be parang verified or talagang to be presented as an evidence. Now, if it is to be presented as an independent or separate evidence, separate from the testimony of Director Matibag, then it has to be talagang you will have to establish its authenticity, the identity of the person, the affiant who executed the said affidavit must be presented on the stand. Otherwise, if he cannot be subjected to cross-examination, then technically, under the law and under the rules of procedure, the affidavit would just be considered just a mere scrap of paper. So it really depends on the purpose of the presentation of the said affidavit.
All right, so you think that was the proper avenue of presentation because the contents, which were marked, some of the phrases were quite damning, if true.
Well, technically, so either if you would be presenting the contents, then you would have to present the one who personally executed the affidavit, the source, the very source of those statements. Now, if Director Matibag is just presenting the affidavit na sinasabi niya lang, this was our lead in establishing or in analyzing, investigating whether there was a pattern, then it should only be admitted for that particular and only for that particular purpose.
So, if you say that there are still some hindi naman airtight, where could they have improved?
Well, I think one of the kasi but of course we must also understand that yung impeachment trial kasi it's not only a judicial proceeding or a constitutional accountability proceeding, it's also a political proceedings. Now, you're not only presenting before the judges, you're also presenting before the people, and the people, of course, are watching. Yun talagang, di ba?
Naiinip na ang tao. Is that one consideration?
Yeah, it's one consideration. Now, you're playing on the political theatrics. You're also playing on the evidence. So for example, yung mga, for example, one of the, supposedly, if this is strictly a criminal proceeding or a trial proceeding in a judicial body like a court, the witness is supposed to testify only on personal knowledge about facts, and he cannot make conclusory statements. He should not be making conclusions of facts or conclusions of law. But in this particular case, so Director Matibag tried to make some conclusions of law, and then when there was an objection on the part of the defense, the ruling was that they were allowed to remain on the record subject to the evaluation of the senator judges. Now, so that serves a political purpose because it was presented to the people. The people were made aware of those conclusions. But technically, in a court of law, that should not happen. So looking at it from the point of view strictly of judicial proceedings, that would be considered as a weakness in the point of view of law and judicial proceedings. But in the point of view of politics, it may serve the purpose kasi it was already made known to the people and it was not removed on the record. Kasi kahit na strike off mo yun on the
Narinig
record,
na eh.
but narinig na eh. It was already presented to the people.
So I guess they also had to calculate how much the attention threshold of the public is.
Yeah, precisely. Precisely. Sometimes, parang you have to present and then test the waters until, until what, up to what extent would you be admonished by the judges or specifically by the presiding officer. So if you are not being admonished, then you're making such conclusory statements. You're no longer testifying, but actually arguing the case for the prosecution. So, well, it really depends on how the defense would handle such a situation or such an actuation by the witness.
Where did the the defense score and chip at the presentation of the prosecution?
I think the cross-examination was tactical. It was subtle. Minsan hindi natin makikita yon, no? Yung impact niya, you would not actually realize it from the social yung SOCMED na perspective, no? Parang theatrical perspective. But I think it was tactical. So it proceeded from questioning yung personal knowledge, yung basis, yung mga, like for example, yung affidavit and everything. Kaya lang, I think yung weakness doon was too much reliance, for example, on the one-sidedness na argument. When they were pushing that the NBI was one-sided, I think that does not really serve the defense case very well. Kasi parang ano yun eh, kasi sa law may tinatawag tayo na parang tukoke. You cannot say na well, ginawa ko to kasi ginawa mo rin to. Parang ganun. So, parang each threat will have to be independently analyzed and independently handled. And I think NBI director was also able to explain naman na there was also parang an attempt to investigate the threat against the on the life of the vice president, except that nasabi niya there was no appearance despite the subpoena. There was no appearance on the part of the person subpoenaed. So the investigation did not actually push through. So it's not like so parang he was saying na this is different yung the case of Vice President Sara Duterte, because in this particular case, the threat was made publicly in a live streamed video. So parang yung parang res ipsa loquitur. Hindi mo nahanapin kung saan nanggaling yung threat because it was already made publicly.
And was it correct for the defense to keep playing also the video?
Well, it really depends
Does it
on
not
what they were trying to
backfire on them?
achieve. It really depends on what they were trying to achieve, no? I think what they were trying to achieve, yung parang either they're playing on the context na theory, context, background, and they want to push through yung kanilang argument na these portions of the videos cannot be spliced, that you have to look at it from the context of how it was said, why it was said, parang ganun. So I think they were, as part of their strategy. Well, it really depends, on how you want to handle the case. No, it's part of the strategy and plan of the defense team.
Oh, all right, Attorney, I'd also like to ask you about some schools of thought that have come out that even if the VP should she be convicted, can she still run? Are there options? Is there an opening there, or is the Constitution clear?
Well, the Constitution says na the punishment for or penalty for impeachment once you are convicted is removal and disqualification from holding public office in the Philippines. Now, there are two theories here. Once there is conviction, one theory is that package deal yung removal and disqualification from public office. And now there's also another theory which I actually proposed in some of my analysis, that these two penalties are supposed to be separate. And that is why precisely, for example, even if there is, let's say, resignation on the part of the Vice President, the Senate impeachment trial can actually proceed for purposes of determining whether she should be convicted and then disqualified from holding public office in the Philippines. Kasi once there is resignation, then it makes the removal penalty as already, di ba? So hindi na siya kailangan. But the penalty of disqualification is separate thing. So we have we have precedents from other jurisdictions whereby after they vote on the conviction, which results in removal, in a penalty of removal, they vote separately on the question of disqualification.
So that will be a matter that the court will have to address as well.
Well, ultimately, but I do believe that the Senate being the sole judge of the trial, I think it has to make a stand and should not
the
only
impeachment court will be the one to decide on whether to vote on those two separate matters.
Yeah, technically. Because I don't think the Supreme Court will have enough basis to say na they have to be packaged deal, na talagang dapat removal and then dapat kasama yung disqualification from holding public office in the Republic of the Philippines. Or if for example, the impeachment court decides na it's only removal but there will be a separate vote for disqualification. And then what if, for example, there was conviction for purposes of removal and then the vote for purposes of disqualification was not met, yung required number for purposes of disqualification? That's a possibility. And we actually saw that in some countries.
I see. So you're saying hindi package deal, hindi rin klaro actually dun sa Constitution, ano?
Hindi klaro.
But what makes you think that why is this your belief?
Well,
what's the principle behind it?
The evidence may be sufficient for purposes of removal from public office for the particular term. But the senators may find the evidence as not sufficient for the perpetual and absolute disqualification from holding public office of the respondent.
Kasi perpetual yun. I mean, forever
Perpetual,
na yun, right? It's kind of harsh.
And that does not only apply to the presidency, it applies to all public or government positions as well.
Well, we thank you so much for your interesting take and insights. That was University of St. La Salle Constitutional Law Professor and former Law Dean, Ralph Sarmiento. You're watching The Big Story on One News, and amid an impeachment trial, Vice President Sara Duterte emerges on top again as candidate for president in 2028. The Pulse Asia president breaks down the numbers for us. Stay tuned.
So the Chinese don't do things at random. There's Yeah, and there is a grand opera that a grand script, grand play. Everybody has a script, so this is part of it. It could also be that Xi Jinping, to solidify his hold, he would like perhaps to firm up his legitimacy and creating the scenario where China is under siege.
Defense Secretary Gibo Chodoro there in an exclusive interview with our Ed Lingao. Chodoro believes the Ayungin assault on July 20, the sudden claim on Batanes, and the AI video depicting the Philippines as a monkey are interconnected, and they are all part of a script, or what he called China's grand play. You can catch the rest of this interview on the long take. Majority of Filipinos, or 64%, believe the Philippines should somewhat or strongly distrust China. That's according to the latest non-commissioned survey by Okta Research. The figure is up from 55% in March. And of those who expressed distrust, 37% said the Philippines should somewhat distrust China, while 27% said it should strongly distrust it. Meanwhile, only 15% said the Philippines should trust Beijing, while 21% remain undecided. Okta Research said the findings suggest Filipinos are taking a firmer and increasingly distrustful view of China amid heightened public attention on the West Philippine Sea. Now on to another survey. Vice President Sara Duterte once again topped Pulse Asia's presidential preferences for the 2028 elections. Duterte got 49% support, while former Vice President, now Naga City Mayor Leni Robredo ranked second with 26%. Senator Raffy Tulfo is third with 14%. DPWH Secretary Vince Dizon and Baguio City Mayor Benji Magalong also figured in the list. Other names that emerged: Senator Robin Padilla, President Bongbong Marcos, Davao City Mayor Baste Duterte, Pasig City Mayor Vico Soto, Senators Ping Lacson, Tito Soto, and Risa Ontiveros, and Laguna Governor Sol Aragones. In the vice presidential race, Senator Bongo led the field with 27% support, ahead of Senator Robin Padilla's 21%. Padilla, however, topped the survey for the 2028 senatorial race with 48.4% support, followed by Pasig City Mayor Vico Soto at 47.9%. Others in the list were current Senators Alan Peter Cayetano, Loren Legarda, and Mark Villar. Some Senate alumni: Manny Pacquiao, Nancy Binay, and Sani Angara, as well as columnist Ben Tulfo, Senators Jinggoy Estrada and Chis Escudero, and also TV host Willie Revillame, Mike Defensor, Mar Rojas, newly appointed Cabinet Secretary Benher Abalos, and Mark Lapid. The survey had 2,400 respondents and it was conducted between June 28 and July 3rd. Now let's analyze this further with Ronald Holmes, President of Pulse Asia Research Incorporated. Good evening. Welcome to the Big Story once again.
Good evening, Ces.
Now, these names, how are they chosen, first of all? Like we had Mayor Benji Magalong, Secretary Vince Dizon. Why? Why?
It's within our group, and essentially we're just looking at reports and possible personalities that might be. Actually, some of them have been mentioned as potential candidates by specific groups. Some of them we listed with the belief that if the administration were to fill a candidate, one of the leading or the more prominent members of the cabinet might be the one. So this is all essentially, well, partly it's based on reports, partly it's speculative also, but it's a good way of actually testing the level of support for a full range of personalities covering all the political camps.
All right. Now, when you conducted this survey, the House Committee on Justice had already concluded its hearings, and the Senate was already in the getting ready to hold its trial, or convert itself into an impeachment court. So these developments had no impact at all on the ratings of VP Sara.
Essentially, the ratings, despite an increase in the long list, when in the list that we had 6 names, remain constant. Even if you look at the approval and trust ratings of the vice president, they're almost the same as what we had in March. In the long list, there's an increase, I think, of about 6 points, but that may not necessarily mean that it's just simply the lack of an impact of the impeachment. It may also mean that among the persons that are listed there, 2 of the 6 personalities listed there, Mayor Lenny and Senator Rafi Tulfo, had repeatedly mentioned that they would not be running for the 2028 presidential elections. And that might have led towards some of their earlier supporters expressing interest or preference for other individuals, not necessarily those in the list, those that were volunteered and we reported out as unaided.
So Ron, parang wala kasi siyang kalaban. Parang ganon. Tama ba yun?
Yeah, siya pa lang ang deklarado eh. In that sense, I mean, it's similar to what we had in 2008. I think when we had pre-election surveys for the 2014, when we had pre-election surveys for the 2016 elections. At that time, I think the first one that we conducted, then Vice President Judge Omar Binay was at like more than 40%, I think 41%. Trailing behind him was Grace Poe, I think at 14%. So the distance was that huge, not that large. That was largely because it was widely perceived, although he not declared then, that he was really going to run for president. So it's almost in the same situation that we have right now.
Okay. So, or can we say na parang nothing sticks with the Duterte name? They can behave badly, supposedly, or, issue threats, but gusto pa rin sila ng botante. Can you say that?
Yeah. You can say that there's this particular identity and brand that the Duterte name exudes. It's a political brand that is associated with supposedly discipline, purportedly, decisiveness.
Discipline?
And of course, I'm supposedly discipline, allegedly decisiveness, and action, or resolute action. But of course, that's the brand. That's how they project themselves to be. And the other thing that they have played up fairly consistently over the past few years is that they are being persecuted by the current administration. So in that sense, their narrative is resonating, especially for certain areas that are considered their bases. And because of the substantive support in those areas, that's the reason why they're leading, why Sara Duterte is leading in the pre-election preference for the forthcoming 2028 presidential election.
Or could this preference also be a vote against, the government, the administration, because, the economy doesn't look too good. Many people are suffering from high prices, high inflation, and the VP has very high numbers in Class E, right?
Yeah. Well, it's partly that, and I would say that it's in combination with the initial narrative of the Dutertes that they're being persecuted. Because the other thing is that who is persecuting them? They're saying that the persecution comes from administration that they believe to be, and this, I can't recall the exact words of the vice president, that we basically were left with only one vice president. implying that the president is not supposedly doing his work. So in that case, the conditions right now where people are faced with material difficulties provide credence to the argument of the Dutertes that the administration is not attentive to the concerns of ordinary Filipinos. And that doesn't help the administration any, and it definitely lends, as I said, support for the allegation and the assertion of the Duterte camp that the administration is not performing or that the president is incompetent for that matter.
So does that mean that the findings of the impeachment court, should it convict, would be discounted as political persecution? Could that be possible?
Well, let's see, because eventually the decision will be resting in the Senate, and you need 2/3 of the members of the Senate. And if they decide to convict the vice president and decide subsequently also to bar her from holding any public office, so that ends her political career essentially. But that doesn't mean the end of the Dutertes, because I'm pretty sure that they have someone that they would put up against to replace the current vice president as potential candidate in the 2028 elections.
Now let's go to ex-VP and now Naga City Mayor Leni Robredo. Are you seeing that this is hanggang dyan na lang ang opposition votes? Is this a ceiling na lang ba? Yung is it 26? 26%.
26. Well, it's 26 says, but it's 26 of a person who had categorically said that she would not be running for election. So in that sense, it's not so much of a ceiling. It is an indication of a support base that might dwindle if she continues to say that she will not be running and eventually doesn't run, or that might increase if she suddenly changes her mind. Because if you subsequently declare, that means that the people might reflect on their own choices, and eventually her group would definitely organize in order to mobilize support. So I wouldn't look at it as a ceiling, because the number is quite considerable. 1 out of 4 Filipinos expressing support for someone who said she's not interested to go back to a national position.
So that, on the contrary, that might egg others to continue to press her, even if she has said no.
Yeah, well, I'm pretty sure that people who are convinced that she would be the more viable candidate would urge her. But, one of the things that we've seen in the past is that I think it's very important for groups that are ideologically aligned, that means for the liberal progressive opposition, to start their work right now, regardless of who the candidates is, and unite around that particular candidate, whether it's the former vice president, whether it's any one of their current senators, or any other person that they believe can definitely represent the liberal and progressive opposition.
Right. Well, Senator Risa Hontiveros has already somehow declared and indicated her willingness. Why is she not among the top choices?
Well, let me clarify. There is a specific set that we have where it's a one-on-one race between Sara Duterte and Senator Risa Hontiveros. And in that particular set, she draws about 1 out of 5 votes. You have Sara Duterte leading with about 3 out of 5 votes. But this is a point where, Senator Risa has yet to really go out and proclaim what she would wish to focus on if indeed she would run for president.
So that 1 out of 5 is a good number.
It's pretty good. I mean, if you're looking at all other presidential elections in the past, when we did polling for the 2016 election, we had Rodrigo Duterte at the starting point. The first poll that we did, he was, 12, 15? So double digit, but also low double digit. 20 is definitely a higher double digit. and he was up against other candidates, Noyner Aquino, Manny Villar, Ella Estrada. I mean, no, he was up against Binay and Grace Poe.
Grace po,
So,
Mar Rojas.
yeah, I mixed up my elections. But double digit, and he did not decline. His preference did not decline. People were saying that he was not in contention from the outset. What our survey shows that he had double digit preferences, and eventually, slowly, incrementally move up to end up with what, about 39% of the vote, if I'm not mistaken.
So meaning this compares to
Well, it really compares to the
Who?
position that other candidates had. Of course, I don't know whether we should expect a one-on-one between Sara Duterte and another candidate from the
Okay.
Liberal Progressive Opposition.
But
If it
okay,
ends
let's
up,
go into that
yeah.
scenario. Sorry to interrupt your train of thought, but if we're going to a one-on-one battle, so to speak, what would be the outcome?
Well, if the elections were held at the time that we conducted the survey, Sara Duterte would win with about 6 out of 10 votes, and Risa would have 2 out of 10, and the rest would be basically undecided, or they refuse to vote. They will not even turn out. If it's a one-on-one yeah,
Yeah, sorry, one-on-one between Sarah and Lenny.
then it's 5 against 4. But at this
close.
point in time, so that means 52% favor Vice President Sara, 39% favor Mayor Lenny. So that's close.
That's close.
Yeah, it's that. But says the real situation is that we're still more than 2 years to go before the 2028 elections.
yeah.
Decisions that are made early, either by any group, by any political camp, would eventually have an impact in terms of their chances. So far, the decision made by Sara Duterte to declare early might have already been brought about by an organization that has been created to propel her to the presidency 2028. And anyone who would contest that would definitely have to prepare now, whether it's Mayor Lenny, whether it's Senator Risa, whether it's someone else, whether it's someone from the administration, or any other independent
Yeah,
candidate.
and going back to Risa Ontiveros, if she prepares that one can be converted quickly.
It definitely can, because what we see in the numbers here would be that she's polling well in the National Capital Region. She's not doing that badly in the rest of Luzon, which constitutes almost half of the voting population. She gets about 1 out of 4 votes in the Visayas. It's really Mindanao that has been the main base that has consistently led towards the current vice president leading in re-election preference surveys.
When will you come out, or when is it time to get a reading of what the people think of the impeachment trial?
When as soon as the trial has started, you and I, says, I don't know about you, but I have been glued to either my earbuds or
Exactly. We lose how many
computer
hours a
monitor.
day
Yeah,
just
but
glued?
but I have to work, so that's sometimes I just listen and I mute if I cannot work. But there's nothing much that can be said to be that appealing, or many times it has been boring. But it will really depend on how it moves. No? I don't know whether it will be even completed before we conduct the next survey, which would be
when?
August or September.
But you will include, will you have a separate survey on the ongoings at the impeachment trial? Or
we do have our quarterly survey. This is what we've done. We'll have another quarterly survey. And since the trial has begun, that will be the time that we can really measure how the trial, how allegations that are surfaced in the trial, whether the evidences are found to be truthful, whether those evidences they believe would be sufficient for either conviction or acquittal. The last point, I think, is going to be pretty difficult because, you know, the appreciation of the public of what is presented in the court would definitely be less than that which would be seen by those in the court, the prosecution, defense, and the senators. So we will need to craft questions that allow us to really get a sense of the public stance relative to whether the allegations are truthful, believable, and so therefore what the actions that the Senate should take, the Senate as an impeachment court should take.
Yeah, that would be very interesting. So, August to September, ang tagal pa. But baka parang impeachment trial din yan.
Yeah, baka nga matapos sa impeachment trial kasi mukhang bulyo na yung ibang tao doon.
We thank you for your time. Pulse Asia Research President Ronald Holmes. This is a big story on One News, and coming up, Senator Rodante Marcoleta pled not guilty to charges stemming from his non-declaration of campaign contributions. Stay tuned.
Alam niyo po, napakaganda po ng inyong sagot. Sana hindi one-sided ang ating persecution. Ano? Kasi, alam niyo, pag kayo ang pagpabor sa inyo, alam niyo, bawal po ang ginagawa.
Kindly maintain
Presiding
order
Officer,
within the
bawal
court.
po ang ginagawa nitong nasa harap natin, nagkukomento.
Kindly maintain order in the court. The Sergeant at Arms.
Hindi po
order in the
sila
court.
allowed mag-ingay. Korte po ito.
Bakit pag sa kabila pinapayagan sila 5-10 minutes? Bakit pag sa amin, sa majority, kinakat agad ni remind pagdating ng 2 minutes? I think nakakalata na kami.
Una-una ating pong tinignan dyan, yung nga pong sinabi na kumausap ng papatay. Lumalabas po rito, alam natin yung kasaysayan, malawak po ang kanyang tinatawag na connection, yung network po. Alam naman natin na siya Vice Presidente at ang dating Pangulo ay kanyang ama. Ibig sabihin, nakadevelop po ito ng mga relasyon. Unang-una na sa mga men in uniform. We are narrowing it down already to less than 20 individuals at may mga pangalan na po kami nito. Baka in 3 to 6 months, we can finally identify kung sino yung personalidad na yun. We are not limiting it to the double death squad. Sabi ko nga po, meron pong mga aktibo pa sa serbisyo na men in uniforms at kasama rin po dito ang Vice President Sara Security Group po.
Missing the impeachment trial is Senator Rodante Marcoleta, who faced the Sandigan Bayan today. Marcoleta pled not guilty to all his charges before the Anti-Graft Court's 3rd Division. The plunder charge against the lawmaker stems from his alleged failure to declare 75 million pesos in campaign donations, while the violation of PD 46 charge is for receiving cash gifts, which has been criminalized for public officials. Also arraigned with the senator is his co-accused, businessman Joseph Espiritu, who likewise entered a not guilty plea. Prior to the arraignment, Marcoleta's lawyers withdrew their motion to quash the plunder charge, supposedly to expedite the hearing of his case. Other co-accused in the case, former Representative Mike Defensor and businessman Aristotel Viray, had previously entered not guilty pleas. In a chance interview with media, Defensor had this to say.
Martin Romualdez, sunod ko na. Nakalibulaan, tatlong buwan na ba? Nasa hospital pa rin, si Marcoleta, 1 linggo lang.
In other news, President Bongbong Marcos and U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio reaffirmed the alliance between the Philippines and the United States during their meeting in Malacanang. Rubio, who is in Manila for the ASEAN Foreign Ministers meeting, said they remain committed to the partnership with the Philippines. Philippine envoy to the U.S., Babe Romualdez, said the talks also covered the American-led Pax Silica initiative, which seeks to strengthen cooperation on artificial intelligence, semiconductors, and other critical industries. He said Manila's dispute with Beijing was also raised during the discussion.
We had a very positive meeting last year in Washington, and then this is a country that has deep ties to the United States for many, many years. And it's a partnership that is only growing, and in light of recent events, I think more important than ever.
On to consumer news now. The peso fell to its record low against the US dollar. The peso closed this Wednesday at 61.75 against the greenback. This matched the record low it set on May 18. The decline came as a stronger US dollar and renewed tensions in the Middle East drove investors towards safe haven assets. That weaker peso, along with higher fuel costs, power rates, and an impending wage hike, could soon push prices even higher. In an interview with Good Morning Kapatid, Philippine Amalgamated Supermarkets Association President Stephen Kua said any price adjustments will depend on when manufacturers and retailers pass on rising costs. He also shared his estimate of how much prices could increase.
As expected, probably mga 7%. Some will probably add up 10%. No? Kasi it's a 9.5% increase in salary. No? Yun, on top of, gasolina, pag-increase ng presyo, electricity, no? Not to mention, the exchange rate, no? The peso versus the dollar.
But that's not the only concern. The Foundation for Economic Freedom warns the minimum wage hike could trigger a domino effect, with some small businesses potentially forced to cut jobs. The first tranche of the 85 peso wage hike takes effect on July 25.
Gradually over the course of the months, no, yung kasi siyempre yung mga ibang businesses mas mabilis itataas yung presyo nila at yung mga iba hindi. Yung mga iba naman magiging response niyan cut down sila ng labor or even yung hours na ibibigay nila kasi tumaas yung cost nila.
Lahat naman ng industriya kailangan magtaas ng pambayad ng sweldo, including retailers.
And those are the big stories this midweek. I'm Ces Oreña-Drilon. Kapatid, we are One News, your side all the time. Have a good night.